Why are so many men dissatisfied with life? They're dissatisfied with their marriages. They're dissatisfied with their health. They're dissatisfied with their financial state. They're dissatisfied with their lack of purpose and meaning in life. And I don't think it's by accident. I think that something may be triggering this, and I've got an idea of what it is. And I want to share it with you. Quite honestly, I think I know exactly what it is, and I kind of gave it an acronym, and the acronym is this: PIS, P-I-S. Hear me out here, and I will tell it to you. So I think what happened after 2020 kind of accelerated. Let's be honest. This whole pandemic accelerated the suffering and struggling of men. And it's almost like a war was waged on men and masculinity. And you and I both know that we need strong, capable, confident men. However, society, the opposition, as I always talk about, does not necessarily want men to be capable, confident, to be protectors and providers, and to question authority. It is our job as men to question authority and to have checks and balances where the big government, the opposition, is concerned. So with that said, they used the pandemic to really isolate men and to bring this narrative along through social media, big media, television. Universities now talk about how masculinity is useless, it's toxic, it's unneeded. And I found that most men now are pretending, and that is the first P in PIS. They're pretending to be okay to their families, to their coworkers, to their friends. You're pretending to be okay when really you're suffering in silence, white knuckling in life, and struggling to get along. And I'm going to give you the solution to all this in just a second. But if you're pretending, then you're not addressing the situation, right? So first we pretend and we act like everything is okay. We act like we're fine. There's no problem. Everything's cool. I'm going to work. I've got my family. But really, you hate life. You hate your family. You hate your spouse. You hate your work. You hate the lack of money or access to good friends and meaningful, purpose-driven things, because life is more than just about going to work and coming back and providing for your family. Like, you've got to have some kind of value, some kind of significance. You got to see that your life is worth something, right? But when we pretend like everything is okay, we don't address it. So the first P is for we pretend to go through life. The second letter is I. We ignore things, right? When we pretend and then we're ignoring the problem. When you ignore a problem, think about this. If I got a cut on my arm and I ignored that cut, what would happen? It would soon get infected, and before you know it, they have to go either operate or amputate or do something drastic, because I was pretending like it's okay, and then I was ignoring the problem and the signs that were obviously very visible until something bad and bigger had to happen. Now I lost an arm, or I had to go through a whole bunch of recovery, right? So if we're pretending and we're ignoring, the next thing that I see men do is sedating, right? And that's P-I-S. We sedate. Because when you're pretending like everything's okay and it's not, and then when you ignore the obvious signs that you are maybe in a funk and a depression, you're dealing with loneliness, and you just don't have any form of connection with other dudes, you don't have a tribe to belong to, you don't even feel like other dudes understand you, when in reality, we're all going the same thing. Most dudes are going through the same thing. Then what ends up happening is you start sedating, because soon you can't sleep. If you're pretending and you're ignoring the problems and the obvious red flags, soon those things start getting to you. You can't sleep at night. You can't focus. You can't do anything. So what do? You start sedating yourself. You start sedating yourself with alcohol. You start sedating yourself with weed. You start sedating yourself with, watching endless amounts of television, playing video games, doing all these stupid things that really get you to focus your attention away from the problem and looking for distractions that are going to temporarily feel good, but in the whole picture, you're not going to feel good about yourself, because again, you know that I'm pretending, I'm ignoring, and now I'm sedating so that I can get through life. But if you're sedating, at some point, it's going to fire back at you, isn't it? That's usually what happens. We hit what's known as rock bottom, and you blow up and you're like, I want a fucking divorce, or I hate my job and I quit, or you make some stupid bad decision that you chalk up to a midlife crisis, when in reality, it's not a midlife crisis. You avoided the very obvious things that were bothering you and pretended like everything was fine. And then you ignored all the red flags and the signs that you could have maybe asked for help from friends, from family, from somebody, from a good therapist, right? Counselor. And then, of course, when things got really bad, you started to sedate yourself with vices and things that were, maybe it's excessive amounts of pornography, alcohol, weed, television, video games. I don't know what your source of vice is that gets you to sedate yourself, but I can tell you that it's not a good thing, right? And so with that said, how do we overcome these things? Well, it's simple. And I know you've heard me say this before, but it's a two-pronged approach. Thing number one, you have to dial in your health and fitness. There's something magical about exercise. It releases endorphins, it releases dopamines. When you start getting yourself back into shape, when you start feeling confident that you're losing fat, you're building muscle, you're focused on your diet, eating high protein, low carb, low fat, and you start getting stronger, you have more energy, you start developing confidence in areas that you can control, right? Because you may not be able to control your marriage, you may not be able to control your work, you may not be able to control a lot of factors in life. The thing that you can control is when you exercise, how hard you exercise, what you eat, when you eat. And soon as your body begins to change and transform and become the body of a man that you idealize and that you respect, and you become congruent with the man that you see yourself up in here in your brain, right? That is a powerful thing, brother. That is a powerful thing. So that is thing number one. I want you to get in shape. I promise you, it'll solve so much of your problems on the mental side, on the loneliness side, because you'll start making friends and connections in the gym. You go to the gym at the same time, so many days a week, you start making friends and connections. The second thing is exactly that. I want you to start approaching other dudes and start building friendships and relationships, because men are not supposed to be lonely. We are not supposed to be a lone wolf. We are tribal animals. We are supposed to operate in a tribe where we look out for one another. We each have different strengths and things that we are masters in terms of mastery, right? We grow together as a community. Iron sharpens iron. You've heard that, right? And so you've got to find that. Now, if you want to take it to the next level, I would highly suggest that you join some jiu-jitsu academy. You maybe consider joining some kind of an MMA school, and you start doing combatives. Why? Because it's very simple. And by the way, I would start with jiu-jitsu. And the reason I would start with jiu-jitsu is they call it the gentle art, right? And it's the gentle art because, look, I'm 50 years old. I'm doing jiu-jitsu. I started 2 years ago, and it completely transformed my life even better. Like, I've had a good life for the last 15, 17 years, and it made my life even better. How, you ask? Well, when you're on the mats and you're exerting energy and another dude's trying to choke you out and you're trying to choke him out, but you guys are friends, so you did the slap and the bump, and you're looking out for each other before you even start rolling. After that 60-minute, 90-minute, session is done where you drilled and you learned some stuff and you got on the mats and you did 5-6 minute rounds with all these dudes. Afterwards, we just hang around. You hang around and men tend to open up. And that is where relationships are built with like-minded men. This is how we test each other on the mats, in the gym. And soon you realize I don't have to be lonely, that life can be better. And life, in fact, is better. And soon you can begin to ask these guys that have maybe experience in other areas of life that you don't, hey, how are you so fulfilled? I hear you have a great marriage. How is your marriage so awesome? I hear you're happy with your life. How is that? Guide me, hold me accountable, show me the way, right? And when you do, you're no longer a lone wolf. You're no longer suffering in silence, and your life begins to improve, guys. So if you will take that advice, you will no longer pretend, ignore, or sedate yourself. And in fact, you will have a better life.